Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tea Time Crochet. Today, or this week, I'm not feeling so hot. I've caught a really icky cold, so instead of doing a full-length tutorial, I'm just going to do like an informational tutorial. I do have a lot of beginner crocheters that watch my videos, so I kind of wanted to do this for them. And if you're a more advanced crocheter, you could just go to my channel. I have lots of different tutorials that you could do. So this is mainly for, beginner crocheters. I kind of wanted just to go over, because I remember when I first started crocheting, yarn weight really confused me. So I kind of wanted to just go over that a little bit. So I have this chart here, and I just printed this off of Google, and it's a really good thing to have as a reference. I have a folder that I keep all of my little charts and stuff that I'm able to go back to and reference anything that I need. So this is one of the things that's in my little folder. It'll talk about the different yarn weights and what those yarns are actually called, because most box store brands will have like this little number chart right here. But it's a good thing to kind of know just by looking at the yarn what size, or at least giving your best guess. Sometimes when you get to the smaller ones, it's kind of hard to distinguish which one's which, because they're all very similar. Same thing when you get up to like the bulky and super bulky. They are similar too, so having a chart like this just kind of helps out if you have a yarn. If most hand-dyed yarns don't come with this little number system, so it's just kind of a good thing to know. So this chart goes over, like I said, the little number system, and it goes through the type of yarn in the category. So a 0 would be considered fingering weight. A 1 would be sock or fingering baby weight. A 2 would be sport weight. A 3 would be DK or light worsted weight. A 4 would be worsted weight or Afghan or Aran, depending on where you're coming from. That's what these other little names are. So in the US, it's basically all the first ones is what we call them. So these other ones are basically for different countries. So once again, a number 4 is worsted weight, which is your standard yarn coming from the box store. And it's also called Afghan and Aran. And a number 5 is chunky or craft or rug. And number 6 is bulky or roving. So that's just the names of the different types of yarn, the different sizes of yarn. This chart also will give you your crochet gauge, which is nice. It'll give you your suggested hook size, and these are all in millimeter. I'm going to go over hook sizes in a little bit too. So, but for now we're going to talk about yarn sizes. So this is the metric sizing, which in most of my videos I have millimeter hooks. All of my crochet hooks are in millimeters, simply because I've bought them off of line, off of eBay, and that's just kind of your standard international sizing. US does have different sizing, even though they're all sized the same. The US has different names. So the US size hooks sometimes use letters, but like I said, we'll get into that in a little bit. So I wanted to try and give you a little bit of an example of different types of yarn. So I have this yarn, and this is it's a Red Heart. It's by Red Heart, and it's called the Cutie Pie. And what's really great about a lot of store-bought yarns is it'll have it right there, the sizing. So you can just look at your chart and say, okay, it's a number 3, so I know it's a DK light worsted. Because not all patterns will say the number. Sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't. They'll just say the name, type of yarn. So this is what a number 3 looks like. It's really small compared to a worsted weight. I would say it's about half the size of a worsted. But I wanted to point out, if you flip your label over, most store-boughts will have this little section right here. So it'll have your number here, and it says light. So that's referring to the light worsted. And it'll also give you your suggested hook size or needle size if you're knitting. And it also gives you your care of your garment labels here. And it also says it here if you don't know what these stand for. But that's an example of a number 3 light worsted. And here's an example of just your standard worsted weight, which is a number 4. It's also another Red Heart Super Saver. And Red Heart is really great about putting the number right on the front of the label. So, once again, it has your little chart here. It says it's a number 4 medium worsted weight yarn. And this is what a number 4 looks like. Most beginners start out with a worsted weight yarn because it's the most common yarn that there is, at least in most standard stores. So, and it's also, the worsted weight is kind of dead set in the middle of everything. So, another one that I have is this one, and this one is a Lion Brand yarn. So see, Lion Brand doesn't put the number right on front. You have to actually flip it over, and on the back it'll have the little section where your charts are. And this one is a number 6 super bulky. So, this is what this one looks like. And these are really great for really fast projects. If you use a super bulky weight of yarn, you're going to work your project pretty quickly. So that's the yarn sizes that I wanted to go over with you. Like I said, it's a good idea to print off one of these charts. That way, if you're looking at a pattern and it says you need to use sport weight, you know that sport weight's a number 2. Or a lot of patterns will just say worsted or sport or chunky or super bulky. So I hope that helped out anybody that was curious about or having trouble with yarn sizing. Because I know that when I first started, figuring out different yarn sizes for what pattern needed to go with it really confused me. And it took me quite a while to figure it out. And I mainly just started using worsted weight yarn, just simply because it's ready available, and a lot of patterns are written for worsted weight. So I just wanted to go over that real quick. I'm going to go over hooks real quickly. It's a really good idea to go on Google and just type in crochet hook conversion chart, and try and find something that's similar to this, because most of the time you're going to find patterns that are written in one of these different sizings. So the metric, the US, or the UK. So like I said, most of my hooks are metric, which means they're sized by the millimeter, and most of my aluminum hooks are millimeter. So it's a good idea to kind of have a chart. That way, if you have something that says I need an H hook and you only have millimeters, because like I said, the millimeters are most common when you're going to buy crochet hooks, especially if you're looking on eBay, because that's a standard size. So it's a good thing to have a chart if you're looking at a pattern and it says I need an H hook, so you can just go over and say, okay, that's a 5 millimeter. So, and you know, it's nice. I really don't see too many patterns that are written in UK terms, at least not here in the US. I'm sure in, you know, other places that it's more common, especially, you know, in Europe. But for the US, it's mainly just in US terms or in millimeters. So it's nice to have a chart like this. Hooks come in all different designs and materials. These are aluminum. And like I said, I bought this, it was a set off of eBay, and I paid a couple bucks for them. And I love them. They are the hook that I use the most. So a lot of people find them a little bit heavy. I don't. I guess it's because it's the hook I started out with, and it's the one I've used a majority of my crocheting. So I guess I'm adapted to it. But these ones are aluminum. And they also make them in plastic. So I do have a couple plastic ones. I don't have a whole lot of them. I think I only own 2 of them. And this one I simply bought because I needed it for a pattern, and it only came in plastic. But I think plastic would be really nice, considering that it's super light. And, you know, it's fairly durable. And they also come in wood. This is a vintage hook of mine. I have no idea what type of wood it's made out of. It's a Susan Bates hook, and it's a 10 millimeter size N. And I actually had to use my chart when I first got this hook. Had to use a chart like this to figure out what an N was, because I picked this up secondhand at a thrift store, and I didn't know what size that meant. And a lot of times, especially with vintage hooks, it'll have a letter and a number, and that both of those still are referring to US terms. So that was a little confusing, because I thought that maybe that might be a 15 millimeter crochet hook in the beginning, but I was wrong. Because I bought this shortly after I started crocheting. Back then I wanted to do a lot of bigger projects with bigger, bulkier yarns. So because, you know, like I said, they're quicker. So I actually had to find a chart to find out what actual size this is. I think on eBay, there's a lot of wooden hooks made out of bamboo. I think those would be excellent hooks. I do have some knitting needles that are made out of bamboo, and they're super light and very soft to the touch. So I think bamboo hooks would be really nice. I hope to own a set in the future, but for now, I really can't see spending the money on hooks that I already own. So, I'm just, kind of that way. I already have 2 sets of aluminum hooks, and I really don't need another set, and they don't bother me, so that's why I haven't bought them yet. But I kind of wanted to just go over this real quick with you guys. I know I don't have a tutorial this week, but to be honest, I'm just not feeling very well. So I did want to have some sort of content for you, and that's why I decided to go ahead and do this. I have not done it on my channel yet, so hopefully this is helpful to someone. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.